Shalom, I'm Rabbi Jonathan Ginsburg of the Ezra Habanim Niles Township Jewish Congregation, Skokie. This is the third in the series of my favorite Jewish jokes. The first one has to do with both the rabbis, and they all have to do with rabbis. First one has to do with rabbis and kashrut and temptation. So this rabbi lives in a house which is 2 doors away from the synagogue, and in the middle is a store that specializes in baked pig. And in the window of this restaurant is a little pig with an apple in the mouth. The rabbi walks back and forth by this restaurant for many years, and gradually as he's sitting in his office or at home, he begins thinking about the picture in this window, and he begins to build up desire, and finally he's just daydreaming about this pig all the time. And so finally one day he gives in to temptation. He goes into the restaurant and he orders the pig, and he sits in the corner. Of course he's very nervous that somebody's going to see him because pig is forbidden by Jewish law. Wouldn't be good for a rabbi to be caught eating pig. And so he eats it, never mindful of the fact that God can see him anyway, but he shuts that out of his mind. He's eating the pig, and it's delicious. A few months later go by, and again he's daydreaming about this, and he gives into temptation again. He goes into the restaurant and orders this little pig, comes out with the apple in the mouth. He sits down, he eats it, all the time nervous that somebody's going to see him. And finally, after this goes on for several years, one day he's sitting in the back of the restaurant, as he normally does, and the waiter says, "Oh, I see ya, I'll bring out the pig." And as he's sitting down, he hears a tap on his shoulder, and the president of the synagogue, "Hey, Rabbi, I was walking by, I saw you in the window, how are you?" So the rabbi, of course, is so nervous now, he can't believe it. So he gets up to go tell the waiter not to bring the pig, and out comes the waiter with the little pig and the apple in the mouth. The rabbi now is, he's perplexed, and he's so nervous, and the president looks at him, looks at the pig, and is about to say something, and the rabbi says, "Oh my God, are they dumb here? I ordered a baked apple, and look how they serve it." Anyway, that's joke number 1. Number 2 is another rabbi story. New rabbi starts in the congregation, and this, in order to understand this one, you have to know a little bit about kind of Judaism and modern Jews. So the new rabbi starts, and the president the first week says, "Rabbi, you're new here, and I know you're going to be wonderful. I just wanted to talk to you about the theme for your sermon, to see what you were going to talk about." The rabbi said, "Well, the Torah portion this week deals with the dietary laws, kashrut. I thought I'd talk about that." So the rabbi says, "Well, kashrut is sort of old-fashioned. Not too many congregants keep kosher here. I think it'd be better for your first sermon if you didn't really, rock the boat too much and give a sermon about kashrut." The rabbi said, "Well, I know it's Shabbat, and I thought then maybe if I'm not going to talk about kashrut, I could talk about Shabbat as the essential holiday day of the Jewish week and how central it is to Judaism." The president said, "Rabbi, well, not too many people observe the Sabbath around here. Some come to services, not too many. Most people work, or they don't observe Shabbat in the old-fashioned way. Maybe you shouldn't talk about Shabbat. Talk about something else." The rabbi said, "Well, I was going to talk about the importance of visiting Israel and the importance of Israel to Jews." And the president said, "Well, not too many Jews have visited Israel, and, a lot of Jews don't seem to care that much anymore." The rabbi is now a little exasperated. He says to the president, "Well, if you don't want me to talk about kashrut, you don't want me to talk about Shabbat, and you don't want me to talk about Israel, what do you think would be safe to talk about?" And the president said, "Oh, Yiddishkeit, general Jewishness." Third story. Another kind of joke rabbis like to tell each other. This particular congregation had a wonderful rabbi emeritus, and they honor him every year. Now he's 95, by giving the big sermon of the year, the Kol Nidre sermon. Only one problem: for the last 5 years he's given the exact same sermon word for word. And they're a little frustrated about it, but they love him so much, and they're sort of intimidated by him, they don't know what to do. So finally, about March, 5 months after Yom Kippur, 3 past presidents say they'll go talk to him. So they make an appointment to see him, and they go to his house, and the rabbi, we love you, and we love the fact you give the Kol Nidre sermon. There's only one problem. You've given the same sermon for 5 years, word for word. The rabbi said, "I did?" "Yes, you did, Rabbi." "What did I say?" So they're looking at each other. "Rabbi, well, it's 5 months after Yom Kippur. We don't really remember what you said." The rabbi said, "Aha, tell you what, I'll give the sermon next year, and if you come back to me in March and you can remember what I actually said, then I'll stop giving that sermon." All right, story number 4. The most pious rabbi in the world dies. Now, the background of this joke is that in the Jewish legends, when we go to heaven, we get a choice of either beef or fish. And as you know, according to Jewish dietary laws, it's very difficult to prepare beef kosher. You have to slaughter it a certain way. It has to be checked. You have to check for the blood, all that. The fish, basically, no preparation as long as the fish is kosher. So the most pious rabbi in the world dies and goes to heaven. And God says, Reb so-and-so, because of your piety, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be the waiter for you at this meal of when you get to heaven. And as you know from the traditional legends, you have a choice between beef or fish. What would you like? The rabbi says, God, tell me something. Who's going to make sure the beef is kosher? God said, well, I will. The rabbi says, I'll take the fish. That really has more of a joke about how some people like to do one-upmanship in the kashrut world, but it's still cute. One final joke. This beloved rabbi, brilliant, gives great sermons. But every time before he starts services, he takes a little box out of his pocket, opens it up, reads something in the box, puts it back, puts it in his pocket, puts it in his desk drawer, and locks it up. And the congregants over the years know this about him, and they're dying to know what's on that little piece of paper. But he won't tell them, and they're too embarrassed to ask. And so one day, when he's 87 years old, giving a sermon, in the middle of the sermon, he drops down on the pulpit and dies of a heart attack. So they're stunned and they're sad, and they rush up to him, and one says, you know what, now we have a chance, we can go find out what's in that paper he always reads in his office. So they take the keys out of his pocket, leave them lying there, and they run to the office, and they unlock the drawer, and they pull out a box, and then there's a little piece of paper, and what is it, what does it say? And they say, it says, Hebrew is read from right to left. Anyway, I hope you enjoy those little attempts at humor for video number 3 on Jewish jokes.